Okay, hi guys, my name is Dante, and here we are. I felt great working on this for the last couple of evenings. Obviously not finished yet, but yeah, let's talk about it. And welcome back to the first witness horror game character modeling process by Boro. So what I did since the last episode, if you guys saw my little community post on YouTube, you've seen my process of working on the face. So I did a lot of changes to it. Many of you guys said the face misses something special about it, something actually creepy, because it almost looked like just a face with weird dark eyes and that's it. Like not too much of a thing, especially, you know, a third-person game, it would be pretty distant. Right now, we don't have that problem, I think. I think it's looking pretty good. And yeah, the face actually has a lot of modification. First of all, it's super non-symmetrical now. The nose is going over here, the chin is going over there, and yeah, look at that neck. I freaking love that neck. This is already adapted to the game look, and I believe like if we go higher, like it'll look a bit weird right now, because there's a normal map that imitates detail on top of actual detail now, so it's gonna look a bit odd. But yeah, this is what the mesh looks like, the actual sculpt. And this is what it looks like when it's... I haven't touched these polygons. This is just what Quad Remeasure plugin generated, and I'm totally fine with it. It's really bad in many cases, like this is looking very, you know, bad and all that, but like from the standpoint of production or the industry, sure, this is unacceptable. To me, as an indie developer with finite amount of time, very finite amount of time, honestly, this is looking really good. It's still high detail and it's not using that detail perfectly well, but like at this distance, it's looking awesome. It's giving me complex silhouettes, which is great, I believe. You know, it's looking really cool when you look at it at a side like this. And generally, it totally works with its normal mapping right now. I really like it. I did some optimizations. Generally, all the meshes from here, like this is kind of like LOD1, meaning somewhat close mesh. Not the cutscene close-up level of detail, but the closest gameplay detail. And it's still the modeling stage in a way. I'm texturing modeling right now, therefore I don't really remove unnecessary loops of edges and extra vertices that I'll definitely remove before exporting the actual mesh. As I figured it out, you can actually do it in the end. What I'm trying to say is, let's say the hat. So if we go to the lowest subdivision level, I have all these extra loops in here that were necessary for me when I was subdividing, so the shape wouldn't be round like this, but actually have a sharper, you know, corner in here. That's why you add those extra loops. But before exporting, not right now because I'm still relying on that geometry over there, the sculpt geometry, I would remove these loops, just dissolve edges, and probably something like this would go into the game. And that's generally the logic behind this. And by the way, this is like LOD3 maybe, this is LOD2, and this is LOD1, and this would be like the cutscene level of detail, so something like that. And yeah, I haven't really sculpted the hat yet, so more details to come in there. And yeah, for the face, the cutscene level of detail would look like this, only with a less bumpy normal maps that would be actually made for this level of geometry. But yeah, like much smoother, you will see a little bump from the mole on the face and everything, so totally works for me in that regard. So yeah, I went ahead and made sure that the face looks a lot more like it's worn by something else, which is, you know, the concept that we had initially. It should look weird, like it's not actually a human head, but there's something behind it. Some of you guys were, you know, advising to make it like maybe add some stitches on the back and make it actually look like it's skin worn like really like a suit by something else, it shouldn't go that far. So literally, as this is not a story about an alien. It's different. It's more like maybe a bit of a supernatural devil god situation, question mark. I don't want to, talk a lot about the world of the game for now. But yeah, the point is, it's more like, think Silent Hill, right? Something distorted and creepy and weird, but more like in a dream. It doesn't make too much sense. It's just exposing a little bit of its nature that's hinting at something, kind of like that. So yeah, I made the eyes a little bit wider and made the face stretch a bit more, and I have this really strong stretch going on between the eyes and here, and from the nose I think it really started showing through pretty well. And yeah, this eye is actually sticking out a lot from the eye socket, while this one is the opposite, is like stretching downwards and falling down. So I think it's working pretty well as some kind of mask worn by something else, and generally everything is asymmetrical, like this ear is lower than this one and everything. So yeah, that's the look for the face and generally the idea behind it. Now, the interesting part is how the texturing is going on. So I've been working a lot, like most of the time I spent was about creating UV maps, which is this whole business, right? So if we go into like texture paint or like edit mode, you'll see like this is the whole character, all of it. Now, I made a bunch of mistakes, and I was expecting to make them, of course, but like generally I'm going through with this model as it is, totally fine, because mostly it won't affect the result. The result will be good enough, with only one exception of the shirt. But one main problem I did was that I went ahead and created one material for the whole character and all of its details. So you have the face right here, and this is like the pants, I think. And like everything, metallic details are in here as well. This is the way you normally export the character to the game, like. This is how you export the character into the game usually. You have just one material and it all adapts to different surfaces, different types of materials and everything, and it works just fine. Despite them being like separate objects and everything, they all work inside of one UV map with one set of textures for roughness, colors, and everything. But I found out that it's not the best way to work on textures before you export. So what you can actually do is first you have proper UV unwrapping for all the objects separately. So for instance, these suspenders, they're just right there. Right? So this is it, like this strip and this strip, this is all they take on the surface. And it's actually a bit problematic because if I want to paint on them and create like a soft gradient with a soft brush, if I'll be doing something like this, I'm affecting some other object there. And that's a bummer. It would be much easier to work on it if it would be just one object per UV map. And then you can bake all of them into one new UV map. So I could still kind of do it. I could create second UV maps for objects where I need to have this different layout to work on things. And sometimes it would help me, but I won't go with it as of right now because I feel like I'm getting close to having this model just fine. Still deciding on exact color shades and everything, like this basic plaid texture that I found, by the way, on this free website, Pixabay it's called, so free for commercial use. Just what we need. Really good website, has a bunch of stuff in there, so I just downloaded it, not even using the highest quality of that texture that it's available in, whatever I just said. And yeah, it's working out pretty good. But yeah, texturing was a bit funky. Like, I knew that, of course, the shirt will be the biggest problem because it's the most chaotic shape that's also kind of precise, you know, a shirt made precisely. but it has all these folds and everything, so you have to account for a lot of things. And of course I failed at that a little bit. So if we switch to color, I'm using PBR Painter add-on. And so in here in color, you can see like this is the back of the shirt, and this worked perfectly. Now the sleeves, I made sure they're unwrapped like this into this perfect rectangular shape. So when I create a texture, like lay out this flat texture, it would lay on it perfectly. It's impossible to actually draw it on the model in 3D mode, right? Just walk around and paint like this. I would fail miserably at doing that. You need a UV layout with straight shape like this in order to be able to add the proper texture for a colorful cloth. It's just the way it works. So that's the biggest problem here. But let me tell you guys about the biggest problem that I have right now, and that's why this shirt is unfinished right now. And that was because I was approaching the modeling of the shirt the wrong way. As you can see right here, I created this shape of the shirt that when it's open, right away I was sculpting into this shape, and that's it. And I kind of added wrinkles in there, but they're not strong enough. In fact, if anything, they're like barely visible now. I'll need to increase them a lot. Maybe, by the way, if I would just do that, it would already solve itself. But the problem is, if I just put that plaid texture on top of our... Yeah, this is the mode of working with like projecting a texture, which is super inconvenient. I know, so I can't see like anything. But the point is, like, let's say this is the bit. I think if I'm resizing the brush, it will disappear. So it's laying like sideways, right? And if I project the texture, I would expect it to work just like on a sleeve, right? So it would work just fine. But in here, you see, while it works just fine at the bottom, oh my god. Like at the bottom, it's kind of in the proper direction. As we go higher, it starts being like at 45 degrees angle. And that's because the topology of this shape doesn't actually have all the surface that this cloth would have if it would be an actual shirt that's being distorted like that. And because of that, the topology is not accounting for that, and I can't account for that. Like, everything falls apart. It's just unable to work like a proper plaid texture on the shirt. So in order to solve that now, I would probably have to somehow distort the texture of this plaid pattern to fit it into this little piece of cloth. So it would be vertical here, and then vertical here like this. So it needs to change the angle a lot at this place. And that'll be a huge, ordeal to make sure it works just the right way, realistically. So if I would start over, which I won't, if I would start over or on the next character, I'll make sure that whenever I work with clothing, I approach it like real clothing. Meaning you need to first create it all straight, like in zero gravity, with zero folds, zero stretchings or any kind of wrinkling situations like this. And then when I would be putting it in place, I would only be using the cloth brush. This would solve a lot of problems with being unable to, generate good wrinkles, because, if you sculpted something like this initially into this shape and then you want to introduce a lot of wrinkles in here, what do? Like, the way the cloth brush works is that you grab the cloth and you move it, and as you move it, it creates the wrinkles, right? And in this case, everything's already in its appropriate place. So what I needed to do first, I needed to sculpt the closed, completely buttoned down shirt, and then use the cloth brush to open it. That way I would have all the surface necessary to have the consistent, appropriate surface of the shirt in here for the pattern. I would have good wrinkles going on because I would have the consistent surface going on everywhere. Like, you see, all of this is created when I'm already moving the the cloth away from the desired position. And in that case, I would be grabbing from here into this position, and I would get all the wrinkles I want, and it would look really awesome. But now I'll have to kind of fake it with the wrinkles and then fake it with the texture as well, which is a lot of extra problems to solve. So I'll make sure that working with clothing needs to be done, like positioning clothing needs to be made with the cloth brush only. And before the cloth brush, you only model the shape in its perfect unwrinkled position with no stretchings, no contractions or anything like that. So yeah, this is one kind of a bummer that I got stuck with a little bit. Aside from that, some sculpting on the hands still needs to be done, although I already kind of made the hints on the fingertips, the nails or whatever. So it's kind of working. The pants are like, I approached them very roughly, with creating huge bumps and sculpting for all the seams, and it looks kind of weird. Well, right now everything looks weird in this material. I don't know why it makes everything glossy like that, but yeah, if you can see, like, the bumps are really big. Like, these seams in some places are very strong, like exaggerated. But I knew it was gonna be fine, because when I'll project it as a normal map, it'll be just a nice little bump, in most cases. At least you will be able to really see it. And it's not finished yet. I'll still need to add like more patterns of clothing and everything in here, mostly in color, but also in normal mapping to get some more rough, interesting look in here. Oh, and also sometimes I get some kind of issues on the seams. For whatever reason, I don't really care right now. But what I can do with this is simply going into the painting mode on the normal map. And usually, like, you can't really paint normal maps because that's what normal maps look like. Like, I have no idea how to create a bump using these colors, You just don't paint normal maps. But what you can do is you can use like a smear tool to remove any kind of artifacts. And just like that, I'm removing that. Yeah, there you go, no seam. And yeah, a bunch of issues like that. I'm not rebaking anything, I just know I can smudge it out and make it work. So in the end, I think it works out pretty well. Adding textures, adding especially roughness and metallic properties to the surfaces really makes things work. When I'll add like a texture for these pants, like worn jeans with dirt and grass and whatever cow poop on them, they look really cool, I think. And so general and suspenders right now, they really stand out because they look so ideal. Same as the hat, so all of that requires some texturing, but that's like the fun part. I made sure that suspenders also have that vertical UV, so I'll be able to just apply some kind of cloth texture, like canvas texture, and I'll have that perfectly follow the direction of the shape. It's the kind of thing you can make work only using UVs. Because in this shape, it would be such a struggle to make sure, some kind of photo texture actually follows the shape. So yeah, I really hate UVs. I hate creating all of these maps, but really, if you just be in peace with it and understand that it just really needs to be done, and it needs to be done with, not automatically. In some cases, you can work automatically, but mostly you need a certain layout, certain topology of this map to texturize things better. For instance, the face, this is what the face looks like, by the way, unfolded. I made sure there are no seams on the face because a lot of the times all this bumpy nose and everything, it's really hard to paint colors on the surface. And let's actually work a little bit on the face and I'll talk about it, like how I work here. So if I switch to color and I'll try to paint, if I want to make like the nose redder, although this is not the point of making an alcoholic look, but let's say I want to, make the nose like this. And if I paint, this is what happens, right? This is a nightmare. And this is why I hate texture painting, because you just project from the camera just like that, and that's it. And it's a nightmare. So in order to avoid that, you should have a proper UV layout that would allow you to, approach your nose just like that, It's not perfect, it's not super intuitive or not super obvious what you're gonna do, because like these polygons, they don't tell you exactly where you're painting, But it's way better than fighting this nightmarish issue. So this is really important, to make sure you have like a face and that is like vertical, so you would be able to like work with it right here with no problems. Like painting this red color on the lips would be literally impossible at all, if not for a good UV map, because I would be constantly having issues like this. And instead of that, in here, it's a matter of just making one stroke. But definitely one thing I'm having most fun with when texturing like the face, any organic stuff, is roughness maps. This is the best. Like, this is what makes things look alive. So initially the whole skin was looking like this, and then I painted a little bit of, higher glossiness, like lower roughness on the nose, and it became like a real nose, That's like a bit shiny like this. Well, this is too much, but you can control how moist or covered with skin oils certain parts of the face are. And this is a good moment to introduce a little bit of this around the eyes, because this area really can use some reflectivity here. And this blackness is inside of the eye sockets. Back there it's completely reflective, which is wrong actually, so I'm gonna just cover it up. And this edge is exactly where we can see the eyelid. There, it's changing just like that. So yeah, you just find the proper edge loop and just follow it, and you're gonna stay on the edge of the eyelid to add some of that reflectivity. It helps to switch between different lighting modes or something that would give me more highlights. Oh my god. Ooh, this is looking cool. But yeah, just like that, adding these details, like the details of roughness of the surface, this is just my favorite thing. Getting some in here, because when the skin is stretched, if you stretch any skin, it becomes like more reflective. And if you relax it, it stops being reflective. So some of that in this area can really sell the idea of the thing being kind of stretched, or at least inflamed or something. Ooh, this is a good one. I just realized this probably looks super creepy. I'm just looking at the texture, but you guys are seeing this face. Nightmare. But yeah, what I like about all of this is that we kind of stray away a little bit from the concept. I made the head a lot more, accurate, but maybe I'll actually make it more rough, because I haven't really sculpted it yet. But the face, it looks definitely quite different from the concept. A lot more expressive, but I think this is only, moving forward, which is really cool that, I work on my own models, so I can keep developing the concept as I see it coming to life. One of the few benefits of doing everything on your own. Ooh, yeah, I feel like even adding more reflectivity really close to those areas. Yeah, like super wet. Eesh, that's looking gross. Just what we need. And yeah, today I'm just only using a mouse. I'm not even taking my tablet out, because really for texturing, so far, it's just faster to work with all kinds of menus and modes in Blender using just a keyboard and a mouse. And the painting part is really the smaller part of all of this. Kinda. Like, not really, but also totally. Oh my god. Maybe it's too strong. It shouldn't be so simple. Probably we should tone it down a bit. Like in here, it should fade away. Maybe, just adding some spots, since it's such a noticeable area. Like that's something a bit more complex in there. Oh my god, this little shine on the eyelid right there, that is beautiful. So yeah, the thing about something I really wanted to try, I never got to try it, but I knew what I needed to do, so I was really happy to give it a try and see that it really works well. It's about how do you texturize, like how do you set up a material for inside of the pupils And like, for instance, in the nostrils, in the areas where in the actual model is just, you know, they're very shallow little indentations and that's it. But of course, actual nostrils, they go deep inside. They're like deep black holes. So how do you make it work? So, you know, if there would be a light from the bottom, they wouldn't like reflect as a flat surface or suddenly reflect something. So what I did was, first of all, in color mode, if I would look at just the color layer, right? And yeah, I just make it dark, like I painted a shadow. And this is a place like in modern games with physically based materials and everything, you don't really paint shadows anymore. It's a thing of the past. You don't like paint a shadow from the hat or something like that, you know, or from a nose, or like in super old games they did that. In here, you never do that. Like, color textures are only for actual color of the surface, where the skin gets more red or more yellow and stuff like that. But this is one exception, because the actual model is not the shape that it needs to look like, so we need to imitate a hole, so we're painting this dark shadow. But just like this, it won't work, because it would make that highlight, like a highlight like this can happen in here if the light would be from the bottom. So I added a specular map. And specular, contrary to roughness, where we make things more glossy or more rough, they're still all reflective. It's just that the surface is more complex or super like wet and simple. With the texture of specular, like reflectivity, you just add or remove completely the reflectivity at all. Like, for instance, this is a non-reflective, like rough area, right? Comparing to this, but it, as I said, is actually still reflective. If I remove reflectivity, this is what it would look like. You see this realistic kind of shine at the angle, the Fresnel effect? It completely disappears because we're removing any reflection at all. And that's physically incorrect, because all the surfaces are actually reflective in this world, especially in like normal circumstances, in the macro world and whatever. But again, if we're imitating a hole, that's where we need to remove reflectivity, because we just don't want it to act like a surface. There shouldn't be any surface. So that's why I painted little black absences of the reflectivity in the nostrils over there. And yeah, the same thing I did for these eyes. And now if I go ahead and grab that light source and test it, you see the eyes, it's like not super sharply painted, but it looks even more gross and cool because of that. I kind of decided to keep it like this, but you can see how everything gets really bright and at least reflective in even like dark materials. There's not a lot of dark here, but you can see how there would be reflections going on, but at a certain point a complete hole is going on. And there's no hole, right? This is just a very flat, like very shallow indentation here. But it's imitating something much deeper, thanks to the fact that I removed reflectivity and painted it black. And yeah, the nose from the bottom. Oh no, it shouldn't be inside of the light source, I guess. Okay, I can see that we need to do more work on that. It's kind of hard to analyze it when there's also shading going on top of it. So like this, yeah, we can see that it's not black at all. So let's go ahead and paint a deeper black. Also, it should be like not the whole surface, but like a narrow little thing like this. Because the nostrils, they're actually like vertical, thin area between two walls in a way. That's how nostrils look deep inside of the skull. It's like a natural filter while the air is coming into our lungs through these walls. Any kind of gross particles that we breathe in, you know, they definitely shouldn't reach our lungs, so they'll get stuck between these two thin walls, and it's working out pretty great for us, isn't it? And now if I remove our preview and test it, alright, that looks a lot more like a hole now. It's not ideal, it's not an actual model of the proper nostril or anything, but at least, you know, in a certain moment you won't get that look where, oh, it's like obviously just a little indentation. It will look like so much like just a sculpt, and this way you actually get this whole look. I really like making sure that it's there. This is like a rare situation, but in a horror game, you know, I would expect something like this to happen. Like, let's say there would be some kind of a torch in his hand, you know, like this, and then we would have the shot from the bottom, because this is a horror game, like this kind of shot from the bottom, and there you go, we're seeing that nostril, so it's a good thing to have it prepared. And yeah, of course, these eyes, they need to look like horrible black holes, so I think that's working out pretty good. I'm just talking about things that are like new to me, because I never really made a full character that's like really a real character with real detail prepared for a real game, you know? So yeah, it all introduces new things you need to solve, and interesting solutions for that are really cool to look for. And yeah, I like the way the face looks from this side. It's like very strong smile and really open eye, but from the other side it's like very relaxed and barely any smile. So he's like a two-faced guy a little bit. And yeah, in terms of the color of the shirt, oh my god. The shirt like is like this basic plaid red pattern. Generally in Blender and specifically in PBR Painter add-on, I have this like adjust HSV, and this is just letting you, you know, maybe desaturate, maybe darken, or change the hue a little bit closer to yellow. That's way too much. 0.52? Yeah, like a little bit washed out, a little bit like not pure red, but something like this. I feel like it's a lot more horror looking. Also, saturation is too low, I think. Like, I like this look. I'm not sure if I can like apply it, or is it just gonna be live like this? Because I can just turn it off or turn it back on and compare. So it's live right now. Later on I can bake it in, but for now anything I paint will be also desaturated and shifted. Also, the pants shouldn't be that just basic blue, you know, something maybe not blue at all, because in the concept it was actually brown pants, and it may work a lot better actually, because my favorite red and blue combination maybe it shouldn't happen here. And will this work? I feel like a bit more red would work better. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and cover things up just like this. So this color, I guess, and let's also repaint these little thingies. There we go. Perfectly brown pants. Now the shoes need to be darker. Also, yeah, these boots generally definitely need more work. I haven't done any yet, but considering they'll be mostly covered with like some kind of dirt, it'll be mostly a dirt texture, so I don't think I need to work on too much details with these. And yeah, I guess this will be my update on what's going on. I think I'm really close to finishing this guy. The biggest thing to work through right now is to make sure the texture on this little part works appropriately. And aside from that, it's just some dirt work here and there, you know, more details on the face, actual like skin texture with some kind of jittering brush. I think it'll work out pretty well. And after that, I'll need to make sure that I will remove second walls of objects, because they're like most of the clothing, since it has its like thickness. It's not a one-sided mesh, it has a thickness. That thickness is applied everywhere automatically. So before exporting the mesh, of course, I'll remove all the second sides except for the very edges where it's actually visible, as well as like this stuff will be simplified after all the projections of normal maps are finished. So yeah, this is our guy. And you guys tell me what you think, especially if there's someone out there experienced with this kind of work of exporting characters of this level of detail. How do you approach working with a lot of separate objects? Do you put them all onto one UV map right away or you rebake onto one map later. Because really, I can actually do it right now, like add those secondary UV maps to approach things differently, but I'm just not gonna do it. I feel like I'm pretty close to finishing this, so I'm gonna be fine. And yeah, one actual detail, well, a couple of details are missing yet, aside from like sculpting the boots, for instance. What's actually missing is hair, actually. But I'm thinking to actually create hair using like hair curve things. I haven't looked into it at all yet, but that's one of the main reasons why this guy looks so much like Freddy Krueger right now. Because he's just bald with the gross skin and in almost a shirt like Freddy Krueger and the hat and everything. But if we add hair, it's just immediately gonna be a different character, I think. Also, another little detail that you guys were mentioning sometimes, like every time I post a video about the witness, you guys mentioned that maybe I should adjust the pose, like, you know, he should be adjusting for the weight from the front and leaning backwards. Like, we got that covered in the concept. So he is leaning backwards, obviously, in here, in this pose, and in this one as well. The hands are in the back a little bit, so that's because he is leaning backwards. Right now, we're modeling in the A pose. So this is a default pose for the character. Then I'll add all the bones to it, and actual posing is a part of animation, so that thing comes later. And that's why right now the pose is obviously not expressive or cool enough, you know? But that's just because this is just how you model things and texturize them before you start posing and animating. But for now, this is it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Also, I should look into subsurface scattering, like this whole thing in Unreal Engine, because it's not really an option in these settings right here, but I believe Unreal Engine can work with that. Also, other channels, right? Of course, there it is. I'm gonna add subsurface scattering.